Welcome back to another episode of Getting Into, the series on my channel where I talk about albums to get into a band. So this is basically 5 albums for beginners to get to know a band. And necessarily I don't talk about the 5 best or the 5 most successful albums, but rather try to pick 5 albums that I think provide a nice first glimpse or overview of a band's career, and most of all, that provide you with the sound that will give you an idea what this band is about or what is essential about this band. And for this third episode, I've chosen something a little bit different from the first 2 episodes. I've talked already about the Rolling Stones and the Kinks, so classic rock from the 60s. Today we will move on into the 70s and into a genre that is sometimes, looked at with a bit of an ironic smile, or which is in some circles considered rather corny and cheesy, English folk rock. A genre that was quite big in the late 60s and in the 70s in the UK and also some countries on the European continent, but which always had a bit of an image of being a bit goofy, too twee for the serious rock fan. And usually with bands from England, there are 2 big names that are frequently mentioned. On the one hand, we have, of course, Fairport Convention, and on the other hand, we have the band I'd like to talk about today, which is London's STEELEYE SPAN. Yet in order to talk about STEELEYE SPAN, we first have to briefly talk about Fairport Convention, because it was that band's former bass guitarist Ashley Hutchings who left Fairport Convention in the late 60s and then eventually became a founding member of STEELEYE SPAN. Fairport Convention already had made a name as revivalists of traditional English folk music in the English scene of the late 60s. They suffered a tragic accident, I think on tour, where they lost their original drummer, Martin Lamble, and guitarist Richard Thompson's then girlfriend. And maybe this was also one of the reasons why Ashley Hutchings felt he needed a change, or he couldn't go on with Fairport Convention. Other sources say that maybe there were already kind of creative disputes. Hutchings apparently wanted to stick to a more traditional interpretation of old folk ballads, where Fairport Convention already went into a slightly Americanized and electrified direction, which, looking back at STEELEYE SPAN, maybe really was the attention in the beginning, but very soon I think STEELEYE SPAN even sounded more electrified than Fairport Convention on some albums. So whatever the reason, Hutchings left Fairport Convention and was looking for members to form a new folk or folk rock band, and he happened upon the already established folk duo Tim Hart and Madeline Pryor, better known as Maddie Pryor. Those 2 had, I think, already recorded 1 or 2 albums as a folk duo and were already a bit of a household name in the folk scene around London. Hart was a multi-instrumentalist from the region of Hertfordshire, I think, and Maddie Pryor came from Blackpool and brought a very characteristic voice and a very fitting voice to the folk and folk rock genre. The name STEELEYE SPAN actually comes from an old folk ballad. It is a character from an old folk ballad, and as is common with a lot of folk ballads, it's about, I think, a duel or a fight between two rather rough characters, one of them being that STEELEYE SPAN. In the beginning, this new formation was also joined by the married couple Terry and Gay Woods, who after the first album, I think, already left the band again to pursue a solo career. I think they formed a band called Dr. Strangely Strange and then the Woods Band. So as you already see, the English folk rock movement was very much intertwined, and there was a lot of personal changes and interchanges between bands. Also, STEELEYE SPAN very often changed their personnel. I think not as much as Fairport Convention, but if you look at those, rock family trees, it's all very confusing with practically changes in the lineup for each album. On their debut album, Hark the Village Wait, you get a full band sound with STEELEYE SPAN, also including a full drum set. And the sound, I think, is very much, it's very close to what Fairport Convention were doing at that point. The drums disappeared for the couple of next albums with STEELEYE SPAN, and for about 3 albums, they really sounded quite medieval and like something that was, dug out from a very distant past. All the material was strictly traditionals that they arranged with more or less electrified instruments, but as I said, no drums, very often not even a bass guitar, so it all sounds very sparse and often quite medieval. And only from the mid-70s onwards, very suddenly, STEELEYE SPAN turned into a full-blown folk rock band, very often, I think, with an even stronger rock element than Fairport Convention had. But now let's get to my 5 picks, the 5 albums for beginners, or 5 albums as an introduction to STEELEYE SPAN. So my pick number 1 is their 4th album, released in 1972, Below the Salt. If you look at the cover, you already probably get every cliche that you expect from the genre folk rock. It looks like, the medieval night at your favorite tavern. And the sound on the album, more or less, also is like that. All is traditional material with Maddie Pryor's crystal clear bar wench vocals. I think that always set STEELEYE SPAN very much apart from Fairport Convention. Fairport Convention was the more melancholic, ethereal version of folk rock with the incredible voice of Sandy Denny. Whereas with STEELEYE SPAN, you get Maddie Pryor, who more sounds like, a maid in the pub who all of a sudden jumps on the table and says, "Hey folks, I'm gonna sing a song," and you can all join in. It's a more lighthearted version, or maybe a more fun version of folk rock. Which doesn't mean that the material by STEELEYE SPAN isn't serious. Of course, a lot of those traditional songs have actually, tragedies at their core, or tell of really gruesome, terrible crimes. But Below the Salt starts with the wonderfully saucy Spotted Cow. that's just a great arrangement of this traditional ballad. You get quite a number of, ho-nanny-nanny moments that you would expect from folk rock. And so you either enjoy this or you will say, well, yeah, that's ho-nanny-nanny, and that's why I don't like about folk rock. You get jigs played with fiddle, dulcimer, and spoons. This album features the great Terry Knight. No, sorry, Peter Knight, I think. A multi-instrumentalist, but most of all the fiddle player in STEELEYE SPAN on a lot of their classic albums. Below the Salt also features one of the band's most successful singles in Gaudete, which was really a strange song to get into the charts in the UK. A, it's sung in Latin. B, it's all a cappella, so only vocals. And C, it's an ancient Christmas hymn. And the album closes with the excellent, fantastic Saucy Sailor, which is the one track where you really wish they already had a drummer. They played this later on live, for example, on their famous Live at Last album with a full band. And yeah, that's just a great arrangement. So Below the Salt will give you all you need. Well, not all you need, but will give you a great start to STEELEYE SPAN when they were still very much focused on, undigging that old traditional material and playing it as traditionally as possible, but already with the occasional power chord attack from the electric guitar. And if you enjoy this album, then maybe go back to the earlier STEELEYE SPAN albums, which sound even more sparse in places, especially the really somehow magical Pleased to See the King, which is probably their most medieval album. And if you enjoy this but would like to have more of a rock spin on things, then go on with the next 4 albums that I would like to introduce here in my little video. Pick number 2 is Commoner's Crown, released in 1975. This album already sees a quite different STEELEYE SPAN. By that point, I think 1 or 2 albums prior, they had been joined by Nigel Pegram on drums. They had a constant bass player and overall had, amped up their sound a little bit, even though the material still consists of all traditionals only. There is a lengthy song called Long Lankin, which depicts a gruesome murder, actually the slaughtering of an entire family with some really gory details. But the song is played in an upbeat manner and has got an almost a little bit prog structure, something that you wouldn't have heard on earlier STEELEYE SPAN albums, but they still have their very ancient sounding a cappella tracks, very often with quite intricate and technically challenging vocal and rhythmical arrangements. For example, on Dogs and Ferrets or Weary Cutters. Then you get material which leads more into the folklore realm of British folk ballads. On this album, it is the slightly hypnotizing Elf Call. Yes, those are the titles that you have to deal with when listening to folk rock. And there is a brief cameo by the actor Peter Sellers on ukulele and I think a bit of background vocals on the stupidly catchy New York Girls. Just a brilliant, solid folk rock album from beginning to end, just like my pick number 3, which was the album straightly following Commoner's Crown. Indeed, it was released in the same year, still in 1975. STEELEYE SPAN were an extremely productive band in the first half of the 70s. And that album is their, I think, most commercial album, also their most commercially successful album, with their biggest hit single included. That hit single was All Around My Head, and the album bears the same name. Fans of the older original STEELEYE SPAN wrinkle their noses a bit over this album and the releases that followed, because, well, yes, critics sometimes refer to All Around My Head as an album that sounds like Status Quo playing old traditionals. Indeed, there is sometimes a bit of a boogie groove to some of the songs, and apart from that, All Around My Head sounds basically like Commoner's Crown Part 2, though I would even argue that the material and the arrangements are even better on All Around My Head than on Commoner's Crown. I think this is just an enjoyable folk rock album from beginning to end. A number of fantastic tracks on here. Blackjack Davy, which was also a kind of minor hit for STEELEYE SPAN. The extremely catchy and rocking title track. Hard Times of Old England also has quite a rock and roll oomph to it. But then you get a rocking instrumental which puts the fiddle at the center, which is called Some Waves, I think. That's just great musicianship, especially on the folk fiddle. And a more eerie ballad, but backed up by crunchy guitars, in The Wife of Usher's Well. This album marked STEELEYE SPAN's brief flirt with serious chart success and a more commercial appeal, a wider appeal. The next album they released arguably was even a little bit more commercial sounding, but that's not my next pick. For pick number 4, we go one release further into the year 1977. That, of course, was the year when punk rock was raging all over the UK, and, well, for a brief moment, one could get the feeling that any other genre couldn't stand a chance, and that punk rock really had appeared to sort of destroy all the bloated other genres that were around and to sort of reset the clocks. STEELEYE SPAN, of course, were completely out of fashion in this musical landscape, and it didn't help a lot that they released an album called Stormforce 10 that year, which exchanged the fiddle for an accordion, played by John Kirkpatrick, who briefly was a member of STEELEYE SPAN in the late 70s, and an album that focused very much on nautical themes and stories, about immigrating to America, the Battle of Trafalgar with Lord Nelson's ship, the Victory. Maddie Pryor performs in my opinion, really great interpretation or version of the Black Freighter from the Three Penny Opera. But yeah, this all sounded very, very removed from everything else going on in the late 70s in music. And maybe this is also why this album has remained a little bit overlooked and underrated in the STEELEYE SPAN catalogue. It has, due to the accordion, it has a unique sound also in STEELEYE SPAN's catalogue, and it's my pick number 4 for my Getting Into STEELEYE SPAN albums. So with that, we have one album remaining. STEELEYE SPAN actually split up for about 2 years between 1978 and 1980, but then returned, of course, again with changed personnel, went for a more kind of pop rock sound, also added more and more, for my liking, really cheesy, sentimental ballads to their repertoire. But they have been releasing albums quite frequently since the late 80s. So by now, this has become a really huge discography. For my introduction, I focus on their classic phase from the 1970s. But the last pick I've chosen as an introduction to STEELEYE SPAN is an album from 1986, a kind of comeback album after a longer break. I think it was hardly noticed at the time, though. It wasn't released on their former label, Chrysalis. But the band came back with more or less the same lineup that they had during the mid-70s, except for Tim Hart, who had left the band or music business altogether. The album is called Back in Line. Very fitting title. And yeah, what I like about this album is especially the first half, which I think has some really, really strong material. The album overall focuses a lot on Scottish history, but I believe it's not only traditionals. There are also a few originally penned tracks, if I'm not mistaken. What you get on this album is a kind of folk-inspired pop rock. Some occasional passages are quite heavy sounding for STEELEYE SPAN. I mean, we are not talking about medieval metal here or proper hard rock, but some passages have quite a rock drive to them. Of course, this being an album from 1986, you get the typical 80s production, which is a take it or leave it thing with practically every band, especially bands that came from the 70s and then continued in the 80s. So you get occasional synthesizers and keyboards. You have a lot of reverb on the drums, chorus effect on the guitars. From time to time, your typical 80s rock production, especially the rock production that more or less established bands went for during the 80s. The second half is a bit weaker, to be honest, but for the first half alone, with tracks like Isabel, Edward, Lana Coast, I think is one track. These are all really, really good tracks if you are a fan of folk rock or of STEELEYE SPAN's style in general, maybe also based on the 4 other albums. So these are my 5 STEELEYE SPAN picks to get introduced to the band, maybe also as an introduction to British folk rock in general. Of course, there's a lot more to the genre as such. I've already mentioned Fairport Convention, and then there are fantastic bands such as the Pentangle, for example. Maybe these 5 albums will give you a taste, or at least will make you decide whether you might become a STEELEYE SPAN fan or whether this kind of music is absolutely not your cup of tea. Thanks for watching, and maybe see you again on a merry morning in May for another Murdock Music Minute.